Welcome. This is James Corbett of the Corbett Report with your EyeOpener report for BoilingFrogsPost.com. During the nuclear catastrophe at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in Japan's northeast last March, the world watched in horror as conditions in the plant deteriorated by the day. Despite public reassurances that the situation was under control, we now know that 3 of the plant reactors actually began melting down within hours, and that plans were being made at the highest level of the Japanese government to evacuate Tokyo, the world's most populous metropolitan area. In effect, the world was given a crash course in cascading nuclear failure. What many do not know is that the damaged reactors were designed by General Electric, rely on 40-year-old containment technology, and are substantially similar to 32 reactors currently operating around the world, including 23 in the United States. In the 1950s, GE, in conjunction with the Idaho National Laboratory, developed a new type of light water nuclear reactor, called a boiling water reactor, or BWR. In the boiling water reactor, the reactor core is used to turn water into steam, which drives a steam turbine before being condensed back into water and fed back into the reactor core. Over the years, various designs of containment vessels have been used on the boiling water reactors. The kind used in the damaged Fukushima reactors is known as Mark I, and was developed in the 1960s as an inexpensive containment structure for plant operators. The Mark I containment system has been a focus of fierce criticism for at least 40 years. In 1972, Atomic Energy Commission safety official Stephen Hanauer recommended that the Mark I design be discontinued, arguing that the small containment design left it vulnerable to explosions from hydrogen buildup. At the time, soon-to-be chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission Joseph Hendry said acceptance of the Mark I technology was so widespread that reversal of this hallowed policy, particularly at this time, could well be the end of nuclear power. In 1976, 3 GE engineers, Gregory C. Minor, Richard B. Hubbard, and Dale G. Breidenbaugh, resigned from their engineering jobs at GE's nuclear energy division, citing design flaws in the Mark I that they had been asked to review. Partly as a result of this criticism, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission issued guidelines in 1980 for upgrading the Mark I design. More changes to the reactors were advised in the late 1990s. When asked if the changes addressed the design issues, Breidenbaugh, one of the so-called GE3 who resigned over the plans, admitted that the Mark I is still a little more susceptible to an accident that would result in a loss of containment. Still, in 1986, then top safety official at the NRC, Harold Denton, estimated a 90% probability that the Mark I containment would fail in the event of a core meltdown, as has taken place at 3 of the reactors at Fukushima Daiichi. In fact, the Fukushima situation appears to fit the nightmare scenario for the Mark I to a T. The plant lost power, emergency generators were flooded and inoperable, the cores of reactors 1, 2, and 3 went into full meltdown, several hydrogen explosions occurred, and all the while, radioactive fluids and gases leaked into the ocean and belched into the atmosphere. One of the figures who has been working tirelessly to inform the public about what happened at Fukushima and what it says about the safety of those Mark I reactors is Arnie Gunderson, a licensed reactor operator with 39 years of nuclear power engineering experience. In May of last year, he issued a video report via Fairwinds.com, the website of his advisory company, Fairwinds Associates, describing in technical detail how it was not only the poor design of the Mark Is that led to the Fukushima disaster, but the criminal complicity of government regulators in failing to enforce their own policies and regulations on these aging reactors, not only in Japan, but in the US as well.
The first and most obvious thing is the containment. Containments were made to contain radioactivity. The vents you hear about and how they failed were an add-on. Back in the 70s and 80s, when these plants were designed, they weren't designed to have a vent. As a matter of fact, the pressurized water reactors around the world don't have a vent even now. So these containment vents were a band-aid fix to a problem that was identified after they were built. Now, the vents have been tested 3 times. At Fukushima 1, Fukushima 2, and Fukushima 3, and they failed 3 times. That's a 100% failure rate. That's an indication that this design is seriously flawed. And it can happen here. It can happen in Germany, where they also have this type of reactor, and at the other BWR reactors around the world. So first and foremost, the vent system that's on every boiling water reactor needs to be evaluated to see if it can be made better or it should be eliminated. And if it's eliminated, what should we do about the containment that can't withstand the pressures of an accident? Vents can also cause problems. For instance, here in Vermont, the reactor is designed to be pressurized after an accident to push water into it. Well, if they open the vent and it stays open, they'll lose that pressure and they won't be able to cool the reactor. So we can have a meltdown. That doesn't apply just here. That applies at Dresden, it applies at H.B. Robinson, and other plants. The NRC allowed this to happen. They allowed utilities to take credit for the containment pressure to push the water to the pumps. There's regulations on the book prohibiting that, but the NRC waived those regulations when they increased the power at Dresden and Vermont Yankee, Robinson, and some others.
Last year, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission responded to a petition to shut down the nation's BWR Mark Is by holding a series of public hearings into the issue, including testimony by Gunderson and others. One of the speakers, Michael Marriott of the Nuclear Information and Resource Service, summed up the core issues involved in the use of these Mark I reactors this way.
You've heard from the petition sponsors, and we support them. You've heard from the engineers, and we support them. You have heard from citizens who have been working on reactors that impact their communities, and we support them. I guess it's my job to try to bring the perspective of the public on this issue, a perspective that has certainly broadened and deepened since March 11th. Quite frankly, the public doesn't understand you. They really don't understand why a petition like this is even an issue of discussion. You know, I saw a poll recently that indicated 95% of the people in the world know about Fukushima. 95%. It takes a really extraordinary event for 95% of the people in the world to know about it. Yet they know about Fukushima. They saw Mark I reactors explode there and release toxic radiation across the world. And they know that's not a good thing, and that something has to be done to make sure that never happens again. But most of those 95% don't know yet. Is that, as has been referred to in the petition, has been referred to by others here today, is that you, this agency, meaning this agency, knew 40 years ago that this is exactly what would happen if a Mark I reactor were challenged. Your predecessor agency, the Atomic Energy Commission, was told by your own safety officials that the Mark I reactors were deficient and shouldn't be allowed to operate. And that plea was denied by the top official at the AEC, not because the Mark Is were safe, but because banning them, quote, could well be the end of nuclear power.
In December, the NRC Safety Panel investigating the Mark Is accepted a number of the requested actions of the petitioners and moved to review the issue of whether or not all federal licenses for the Mark Is should be revoked. One of the men behind this petition, and the organizer of a broader campaign to draw the world's attention to the Mark I issue, is Paul Gunter of BeyondNuclear.org. He joined me earlier this week to discuss the broader anti-nuclear movement that is arising in the wake of Fukushima, and the events that are being planned for next month's one-year anniversary of the Fukushima meltdowns.
Well, there are activities all across the United States and around the world that are acting in solidarity with the people of Japan who are now faced with the long-term risks and threats from the radioactive fallout and radioactive discharges that have gone into the ocean. These activities range basically from educating yourself, your neighbors, your community, to mobilizing into nonviolent direct actions and nonviolent civil disobedience even, at some of these reactor sites, with an emphasis on, again, mobilizing around the not only the in solidarity with the people of Japan, but in solidarity with the people and the state of Vermont, who are really setting the precedent here in the United States for the prompt and early closure of this antiquated design, namely the General Electric boiling water reactor. So you can go to our website at www.beyondnuclear.org, and on our Freeze Our Fukushimas page, you can see that beginning in March, there are daily additions to these public actions that are organizing, not only in Vermont, but in many states and even overseas, that are looking at, now is the time to direct a energy policy for the 21st century that is neither dependent on fossil fuel or fissile fuel. So it's, we're looking to begin a democratic process for self-determination of a carbon-free, nuclear-free energy policy.
This video is brought to you by the subscribers of BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information on this and other topics, please go to BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information and commentary from James Corbett, please go to CorbettReport.com.